Welcome back to another episode of the Baker and the Banker podcast. I'm Jenny Keller of Jenny Cookies, and this is my mortgage guy, Dan.
Inspiration to grads today. We're giving some advice to
Class of 2023.
class of 2023. That's it.
Yeah, we had a busy weekend. It's Monday, and we're coming off of all the excitement of the move, but we got to go to a graduation party on Saturday.
College grad.
And celebrate, a college graduate in our life, a really cool kid that is actually the older brother of one of Allie's good friends, but he has been so kind to Hudson.
He befriended Hudson when he was like 11.
He
and
did.
He was in college.
And this kid is such a cute kid. Like this kid, he's adorable. He's just the sweetest guy. I actually met him years ago. When I went to the Taylor Swift concert. I went with Allie and her little friend Ella, and this kid's name is Chase, and he was going with his girlfriend, and Allie had brought a purse in with us to the stadium. And if you're familiar with all the stadium rules, you cannot bring purses in. And I'm like, just throw it away. We're not walking back to the car for Allie's purse from probably Gap Kids at the time. And Chase was so kind. He said, I'll run it back to the car. And this is not just run it back like to the parking lot. This is like across Seattle.
Big deal.
And he has insisted. And ever since that day, I've always loved that kid. But then when he showed up at my door to go kayaking and fishing with Hudson, I was like, okay, you guys have done well as parents, like, because you have raised a really, really nice kid. So we got that invite, and Dan said, we're going to go.
I think it's really good for kids to look up to older kids.
Yeah.
And Hudson's looked up to him because he's cool.
Yeah.
But he likes to fish and he rides dirt bikes.
Oh, yeah.
So Hudson, and he's a college kid and all that good stuff and likes cars. So definitely we're blessed that Hudson has a good kid and a good family, and they let Hudson come down and hang out
all the time. He's always eating dinner at their house and always sneaking over to the Roots. But I think it's cool too because Hudson will remember that when he's the older kid.
Yep.
And their daughter Ella has been the same with Allie. Like Ella's been older than Allie, and Allie has told me Ella was always so nice to me, and she was like the cool older girl.
Yep.
And so Allie has been like that with younger kids around her, and I love that. I think that's a really cool lesson for kids.
Well, Greg and Kiki, if you're listening,
you guys did a good
or
job.
if you guys know Greg and Kiki, give them a high five because they've done a great job raising great kids.
Yeah. So we got to go to the graduation party, and they had it at their house, and Dan was thrilled with the food. He left and said, oh my gosh, she did such a good job throwing that party. Oh, that was an incredible spread. Do you want to know what it was?
My favorite.
It was Chipotle.
So good. You can do so much with that spread.
I know.
You can make a taco. You can make nachos. You can make a salad.
Again, Dan is part Mexican. He loves all kinds of Mexican food. I saw Kiki today. She was walking. I actually gave her some cookies that I had photographed. I said, here, these are for you. And I said, Dan had the best time at the party. He's still talking about your food.
And okay, so a friend of mine got me turned on about a year ago. So I've never enjoyed tequila. The smell of it, the taste of it. I might have tried it in college, the cheap stuff, and just, gross.
Yeah.
Well, about a year ago, I had a really good friend of mine want me to join him for happy hour, and I did. And he was like, hey, let's get some tequila. And I'm like, oh, no, thanks. I'm good. I'll just have a beer. And so he ordered a round. He goes, no, just try this. He ordered a round of tequila on the rocks with, he squeezed a little lime in it. And I'm like, okay, this is actually really good. And he goes, well, this is top shelf tequila. So anyhow, long story short, I am somewhat of a fan of tequila. We are at the party, and Kiki's like, hey, have you tried Costco's, Kirkland brand tequila? And it's a certain type. And I was like, what? Oh. It was good.
Yeah.
Like good sipping tequila. So I had 2 ahas from that. Great spread, great food. And
Costco
got
tequila.
turned on to Kirkland tequila, $65 for a bottle, and it's comparable to a $200 or $300 bottle of tequila. It was really good.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was good. So a lot came out of last weekend.
So I've been listening to Joel Osteen a whole bunch, and I think I know.
Hudson's favorite pastor.
Okay. Whether you like Joel Osteen or not, it's a great little podcast to listen to when you're in the car lot. And we're in the car lot. We're driving to baseball. We're driving to school. We're driving to baseball again. And they're just 30-minute little lessons. But my favorite thing about, not my favorite, but one of my favorite things is he says, I always like to start with something funny.
A little funny.
And I love that. I gotta tell you the joke.
It's such a great. So first off,
It's
before
my
you tell
new funny joke.
before you tell the joke, regardless of what you think of Joel Osteen, okay, there's a lot of people that hate him, that don't like him, that say he's all about the money and this and that. He's a best-selling author, so he makes a lot of money from that. I think Joel does a lot of good things. Joel is in the world of church and Christianity and all that stuff. I say that Joel's kind of that first grade level.
Maybe
pastor.
that's why I love the podcast,
he's
because you can just easy to turn it on, easy to listen to.
It's easy to listen to. It's inspirational. He doesn't go too deep into the word. A lot of pastors will say, oh, he's superficial or he's surface level, this or that, whatever. Hey, however you can connect people to Christ, good for you. But Joel Hudson, I don't listen to music in my truck, and so I have Joel Osteen on Sirius Radio.
Okay.
And what his podcast really, you guys, are his sermons. That's all it is.
Yeah,
his
just
Sunday
like
sermons,
20 to 30
quick.
minutes.
No music, no choir. It's just when they bring him on stage to do his 30-minute message. Okay, so anyhow, but I do love that about Joel. Hudson and I have been listening to him for about 3 years, just kind of casually when we get in my truck. But Joel always starts off his message with a little joke. Funny.
I think we need to start, but Father's Day is coming up, and you guys might need some new dad jokes in your back pocket.
Well, go to Joel Osteen for the dad jokes.
Okay, but I gotta tell you the one I liked the most out of all the ones I've listened to, because we're in baseball season.
Okay.
So he says, there's two men, and they're debating if there's baseball in heaven. And the guy says, hey, well, let's make a deal. Whoever goes to heaven first is going to come back and tell the other one if there's baseball in heaven. So unfortunately, one of the guys passes away, goes to heaven, comes back and tells the other guy, hey, good news. I got good news and bad news. I'm going to give you the good news first. The good news is there's baseball in heaven.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Bad news is you're pitching next week. I've been laughing about that for 2 weeks.
That is hilarious. I actually told Zach that joke this morning.
I think it's funny. That's the best one I've heard. Anyway, share that with a friend. That's an easy one. Sometimes you just got to say something funny.
There you go. Well, way to start off today's podcast with a joke.
Inspired by Joel. Okay, so graduation. We've been there. I graduated from kindergarten. I graduated from high school. I graduated from college. I had a graduation party for high school. And college, actually. I had both. Okay. Did you have both of those?
I did, yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
Did you have one after your master's?
My mom probably, I grad. No, I think my mom wanted to or tried to after I graduated with my master's degree, but I just stayed in Spokane and maybe came, I can't really remember, but no, I know it was a big deal when I graduated from college. My whole family and grandparents came over to my graduation in Oregon, but the thing is, like, I always played baseball, right? So there was really no time.
That's true.
So they just came over. Probably we went out to dinner and celebrated there, and then, hey, back to baseball and back to life and traveling. So, but I remember in high school, my mom had a party. It was kind of a big deal, that I graduated high school because I wasn't supposed to. And
oh my gosh.
No, it was a big deal. But I don't remember a lot of, like, now with Instagram and social media and everything, you see a lot of these really great commencement speeches and graduation speeches and talks. And I don't remember anything profound when I graduated from college, either with my undergrad or graduate degree, where we had a great speaker.
I don't either.
But I mean, I think maybe we're going to fill in some gaps today for people that didn't have a good message or some good guidance graduating. Maybe we'll give you some pointers or some tips there. But
I was thinking, I have friends that have graduating children right now. And so we're not there yet. Next year, Allie graduates. So I'm starting to begin thinking about, okay, we've got to take senior pictures and we need announcements.
You're planning for a magical senior year for Allie. I know you are, with volleyball and everything.
Anything I can do to close it out with a bang. I went to her volleyball senior team meeting last night, and it was just sad last week. But my good friend Kelly, her son's graduating, and so she's got a countdown now, 22 days until her son Landon graduates. And she said, you should talk about that on the podcast. There's so much, and her son didn't really even, he felt like, why are you throwing me a graduation party? I was kind of expected, to graduate. And I said, well, not everybody graduates, right?
Well, a lot of people graduate. I think it's just the celebration of rounding the corner, or, hey, another phase in life, right? You're now an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we've been talking to Allie and Hudson about it. Like, our job is to prepare you for adulthood. And I think maybe that first indicator of adulthood is, hey, you've graduated high school. What's next?
Yeah.
I can remember my dad saying and it was like my junior year. And he was like, what are your plans next year? And he knew that I was getting kind of recruited as a baseball player, and I had a chance to maybe earn a college scholarship. But he goes, I'll narrow it down for you, Dan. It's one of three things. You know, you're going to go to work, you're going to get a job and go get a job, go to work. Number two, you're going to go to college, you know, and we don't have any money for that. So you're going to get a baseball scholarship or figure that out. Or number three, you're going to go into the armed forces, but none of the above includes you living at home. So figure, you know, kind of, and he wasn't rude about it, but he was like, Dan, and it was a good push. It was a good, you know, hey, this is what you're going to do. Here are your three options. Yeah. And I'll always remember that. I think that was great. Great advice. Obviously, I went with the college, and luckily I got a nice baseball scholarship. It wasn't what I wanted, so I went to a community college, and I worked a job and went to school and paid for that, and earned a scholarship at a 4-year for baseball, and got a side job there so I could pay for some food and some supplements because I needed protein powder and creatine. That wasn't cheap, and food and stuff. So, yeah, I remember that. It was the best advice I got. It was great advice from my dad.
I didn't think it was advice. It sounds like it was like, here's your three options. It was multiple choice.
It was advice. It was direction. Yeah. It was sometimes all you need is a couple of options when you're getting advice from people. Sometimes people need to be told. And I've kind of migrated to that in business. I have a business coach, and he literally just tells me what I need to do and follow the game plan, and then encourages me to grow and learn and get better. But yeah, I think sometimes that's the best advice you can get.
Well, times are just so different from when we were in school. I mean, it feels like it was yesterday, but I'm seeing like graduation was 25 years ago in high school for me. I'm seeing that little alumni thing float around. So that means college was 21 years ago.
Wow.
But I mean, that was I don't know, when I was growing up in our time, it was like, where are you going to college? Like that was what we did. That's what you did. Mm-hmm. And now it's not really that way anymore. You have a completely different perspective on that.
Well, I think it is that way. I think my perspective's different. I think that society is going to tell you it's a box that you have to check. It's something that you have to do. And I believe Americans right now and parents are probably starting to figure this out, that the traditional degree to get a job is not needed. It's not needed to start a business. I think there are degrees that are needed, engineering and medical and science and legal, accounting. I think there's some degrees that are 100% necessary.
Have a degree for that.
But we'll just kind of talk about Allie real quick. Allie is undecided in regards to what really fires her up, what really lights her up on the inside. And so I don't think going to college to find yourself at a $50,000 a year to $100,000 a year bill is really necessary. Like, we had a conversation, like, I'd rather her find herself with practical, applicable experience, or maybe traveling or hanging out with you, than going and getting brainwashed by other kids or professors or an agenda that maybe a college or a university has. And
I was surprised when you said that, because I was in that old mindset of like, wait, what? Of course she's going to college. You know, that's where I learned how to multitask and live with other people and, work at the same time as getting my degrees. And I mean, I learned a ton in college. I was young. I had my own apartment when I was 17, going to school at Western, paying for everything myself and having to work to survive. And I know you did too. I didn't have, the luxury of not having to work in college.
Yeah, figure it out.
So that is where I think I learned how to multitask and really manage my time well. And so, but you were like, you can learn all that, honey, without having to pay for school. And what's funny is I don't necessarily use my degree. I have a psychology degree. Yeah. I mean, I might use it unconsciously, but.
So, hey, any parents out there that are sending their kids to college with very little direction, and let's say college tuition is $50,000 to $100,000 a year, do me a favor, send your kids to me, and I will teach them everything they need to know about life and figuring themselves out and multitasking for $50,000 if you'd like. I will be their personal professor. And I'm joking when I say this, but seriously, there are things that, for example, skill sets that Allie has developed that I don't think I need a college or a college experience to help her really develop and hone in on those skills. So I think I want to talk real briefly about the importance of education, because I don't want you to think I'm devaluing a college education or a college experience. What I'm saying by this is I believe like a high school education is an accomplishment. It's a phase in life that you have accomplished, that you've gone through. I don't want to say you've mastered it, but you've done it. The next phase in life is college, an apprenticeship, a job that you can work up in, real life experience that helps prepare you for your 30s. So you've now graduated high school, you're 18-ish. You're kind of figuring out who you are, and your 20s are meant for that. You know, you're going to college, figuring out a skill, getting better at that skill so that in your 30s you can master that, and you can grow. So I want to say that I think education also leads to a form of accomplishment that increases your self-worth, that increases your knowledge. And when you increase your knowledge, you improve your self-worth. So by no means am I devaluing an education at all. And then I believe that education also helps you overcome certain things, studying for tests, studying for midterms, completing projects, public speaking. So there are so many things about a formal education I think are helpful and are good. I would just... Hey, money is really important right now. We're, on the brink of a recession or in a recession, and money is tight. And I'm in finance as a mortgage professional, and I see teachers come to me and people come to me wanting to get a home loan, and they have $100,000 to $200,000 in student loans, and they're making $70,000 a year. That does not add up. That ratio is a horrible ratio. You are not paying down those student loans anytime soon with that type of an income. And so it's just, I just think with that, being financially cautious of all of that stuff, evaluate your options carefully and with your kids. And that's what we're doing with Allie. And that's kind of what this podcast is about. We're not necessarily giving advice. We're giving applicable experience and applicable, I guess, advice based off of our personal experience. Yeah. And experiences.
Yeah, and what we're about to experience. Who knows? Allie might come out and figure it out next year. I don't know. So, it's hard when you're young because you just don't know yet. Yeah. Even in college, I got a psychology degree because I liked those classes. It was time to pick your major. And I'm like, I don't know. I really like these classes a whole lot. I have a lot of them under my belt.
There you go.
So it felt like the best way to go. But when you look back on that, it is kind of silly how much I spent on all that.
Well, I have an in-house counselor when I need it, so I look at it that way.
I don't know about that. But it is a big deal, and I think it's a big deal for parents. Like, they've gone through all these years. I think that parents should be celebrated, too, for getting through all that time. Don't you?
That's a big deal. And again, you should celebrate the fact that you've helped your child transition to another phase in life, and that's kind of how we're looking at it.
Yeah. Well, what kind of advice would you give to graduates, Dan? You're full of it.
Well, I mean, one, I think there are a lot of challenges that kids face right now. Okay. I think the big challenge in Allie, and this is just from personal experience with Allie, is where are you going to school next year? Yeah. What are you doing? So you've got that challenge of comparison, the comparison game, and they already have enough of that with social media, what she's wearing, what she looks like, how far he hit the baseball or his stats or whatever.
Oh, well, the kids are going on college tours. I mean, that wasn't a thing when we were young. We didn't get to go down to California and visit a bunch of colleges or fly to other states. And
what is your GPA? What are your SATs or whatever? And so I think the first piece of advice, and this is, again, having gone through all of that, currently in business. And so I follow entrepreneurs, and I have the whole grass is greener mindset sometimes too, or, look how successful they are. Look what they're doing based off of what they're doing on social media or an accomplishment that they posted about. And so the first thing that I would encourage high school and college graduates right now to just be open-minded about would be stay away from the comparison game. Okay. The one thing that's helped me with that is I compare myself to what I did yesterday and what I can do today to beat yesterday. Number one, from a business standpoint or a personal growth standpoint, where I was at a year ago and where I'm at today. So a lot of people in business will compare the results they're having right now to the results they had last month. That's not a fair comparison. If you looked at your Jenny Cookies Bake Shop numbers from a revenue standpoint or a profitability standpoint, you don't compare April of 2023 to March of 2023. You compare April of 2023's numbers to April of 2022's numbers. The other thing is you're not comparing your numbers to Crumbles. You're not comparing your success to your, not that Crumbles a competitor, but other people, other businesses.
LY.
Yeah.
Last year.
That's it.
Yeah. I have my mom in there with all her retail terms.
Yep. It's great.
Yep.
And that's one of the big things that your mom has brought to your company.
Oh, yeah. She loves to beat LY.
The right comparisons, the right metrics. And so college kids, parents, I would have you be cautious of staying out of the comparison game, number one. Number two, so if I'm giving some advice to grads.
I'm here for it, yeah.
Some advice to grads, be growth-minded. Be growth-minded.
Growth mindset.
Growth mindset.
Always.
Just growing. Are you growing? Are you learning? Are you taking it in? It's so funny. Our neighbor. I have to share this. Our new neighbor.
Stan.
Very wise person. You guys are going to hear a lot about Stan and Lois. Okay. So the other day we're kind of over there meeting the painters and the floor people, and Stan and Lois come over, and Stan's like, Dan, I've got this men's Bible study, and we've got Dr. Jerry Wright coming in, and he's a 2-star general, top secret clearance with the Pentagon, retired. He's 85. He was my mentor. I'm like, you've said enough, Stan. I'll be there, right? And he goes,
at 6 a.m.
Yeah, I've got 12 of my top friends and former colleagues, and he's a surgeon. He's a retired foot surgeon for the Sonics, the Seahawks, and the Seattle Mariners. And so he had a lot of his medical colleagues there too. But he mentors, or this is a Bible study he had, and he goes, it's Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., and I want to invite you. And I said, I'll be there, Stan. So I show up, and it was the most incredible experience. In fact, we will do a podcast on the Stan 6 a.m. Bible study experience. By the way, this guy, too, is a best-selling author. The Dangers Men Face is one of his books. And anyhow, amazing. But that's not the point. I am having coffee this morning with a really good friend of mine at Starbucks before work, and in walks Stan. And I'm like, oh my gosh, of all the people, Stan, I was just talking about you with Zach. And I'm like, hey, I introduced the two of them, and Stan was like, I was talking with Lois yesterday, and she was like, well, how did Dan do? Like, did Dan have a good time? And what did he say when, during the discussion time? And Stan was like, Dan didn't really say anything. And she was like, well, was he okay? And so this is what Stan is telling me. Yeah. And I said, Stan, in that room of 60 to 80-year-old successful, kind-hearted, very wise men. I had experience. I had no business opening my mouth at all. I was just taking it in, Stan. Yeah. And he started laughing, and he gave me a hug, and he goes, okay, good. And so he left. And I was talking with Zach about that. Mm-hmm. And he was like, that is just so funny. I was just sitting there grinning because he goes, I don't know if I'd be able to open my mouth. I wouldn't feel worthy to open my mouth. And so I tell you this because, kids, when you're around people that have wisdom or things to offer, whether it's a professor or a business owner or an experience, be a sponge. Mm-hmm. Take it in. And my coach has always told me this. When you're dealing with a sponge, we all know what a sponge is, right? With a sponge, you have to rinse, you have to clean, you have to squeeze out the water for it to what? To take in new water. And sometimes we have to do that. We have to make sure that we're cleaning out and getting rid of certain things as a sponge in order to take in better stuff or more wisdom from other people. So be a sponge. That's what I would say. That's like one big piece of advice. I've always had older friends, and there's no doubt that Stan and I are going to be best friends. Yeah. I've always migrated, even when I was in graduate school. My colleagues were going out, and people that I met in graduate school, people that I worked with were going out and they were partying, and I was hanging out with a business attorney and a retired Air Force pilot that were in their 30s and 40s. At their house, having a good time, just hanging out with them, instead of going out and partying with 20-year-olds that had nothing else to offer other than a good time. And so, I would encourage you kids to migrate toward wisdom. Okay, so growth, migrate toward wisdom. I would say stay away from excess drugs and alcohol. I don't think there's anything good. I tell Allie and Hudson this. I've now met one person in 47 years that has said, I'm so glad I smoked all that weed. I'm so glad I partied all the time in my 20s. It doesn't lead to greater things necessarily, so stay away from that. Here's a big one. Learn to public speak.
Yes.
Learn to be able to public speak, learn to communicate in front of others and communicate with others. That's big, because regardless of tech, regardless of AI, there's that personal communication skill that I think is just super valuable.
Yeah, I agree with that.
One of my last ones, learn to network. I think networking is big.
Yep.
Learn to network with an open mind and with no agenda.
Yeah.
Learn to network. Your network is your net worth. Is something that I
Collect
learned.
those business cards.
Yeah, and just stay in touch with those people.
It's true.
So one of the things too, that this group of men that I got to go to this Bible study, these are retired surgeons and heart doctors and foot doctors and whatever, builders, restaurant owners, very successful people. One of the messages that that Jerry was talking about was identity, and how men can lose their identity. And every single one of these men said when they retired, their phone stopped ringing. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, I would think your phone would be, come speak at my event, come help me with this project, come help me better understand. And they're like, nope. When we retired, our significance dropped. We were not, our influence, our significance, our importance dropped or went away. And so I gathered that. I'm like, cool. I'm going to make sure I start reaching out to older, wiser people more often, because their phone isn't ringing and they have time, right? So that's the power of a network. Last two things. I learned this early on, and it's helped me a lot in life. It's helped me a lot in business. Mindset. Understand the importance of mindset and mental toughness. The number one thing I would encourage any youngster to really understand the emotions that you're gonna face in life, how to deal with those, how to deal with adversity. Understand that adversity is good. It's okay. It's tough, but understand how to be a little bit mentally tougher. There's a saying, a quote on my door in my office that says, pressure is a privilege. Understand that. Kids, understand that it's okay. And lastly, learn to have a relationship with Jesus, follow Jesus, because you're going to need him at some point in time in your life.
Yeah.
You're going to hit rock bottom. You're going to have something happen to you. And it's always reassuring to know that there's always a hand reaching down to help you. So those are my tips.
That was our Joel Listing message actually today.
Was it really?
I won't be able to say it because I'm so bad at repeating things. I put it in my head and I understand it, but it's hard for me to articulate it after. You're so good at that. But it was actually, gosh, I can look it up. I can tell you exactly what the title was. Hold on.
Follow Jesus or have a relationship with Jesus?
No, it was good. I got to find my exact message.
So a lot of these podcasts aren't scripted, and so it's a conversation with Dan
I know
and Jen.
it is.
So
I don't know. I can't find the one it was,
Okay.
but basically it was saying like Jesus loves he's actually closer to you when you're making the mistakes.
100%.
And it was really, really good.
Well,
and
think about this. When you're on top of the road.
God loves imperfect people. That's what the actual title was. I loved that though.
That's so great. What was it
so
again?
True. God loves imperfect people.
Yep.
You don't know what it was all about. Like you think like, oh, I'm not, I don't know. I don't want, it's not a sermon here today, but just a good reminder that we all are going to make mistakes. We're all going to fall short.
Well,
we're all going to screw up. We're all going to do all those things. And it's, you can't turn away and think
about this.
Jesus doesn't want me because I just made that choice. It's actually when he's reaching out for you. It's actually when he's the closest to you.
You need him the most.
Yep.
So when you're on top of the mountain, you just had a great success. You had, you won the game and the trophies and everything are getting handed to you. You're having the best year ever. Money's there, whatever it is. Very rarely is that deepening your relationship with him, do you need him? But when you're encountering adversity and you have that health issue or you ran out of money or you're struggling, that's when you're calling out to him most of the time. So, and that's my message and that's my encouragement is to work on your relationship with
I love
Jesus.
those.
Yeah.
Dan, those are great pieces of advice.
I will give you the top 5 books that I recommend, but let's talk a little bit more about your stuff first. That's how we'll close it down today.
I gave you the hard part where you have to do all the advice because you have really great advice. I'm even listening.
Your advice is on how to throw the perfect grad party.
I'm like, let's talk about the fun stuff like the party or what to do with all these announcements we're getting in the mail.
Let me talk about these books real quick and we'll be done. We'll jump onto the party.
Oh, okay.
Want to do that?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, top 5 books. Atomic Habits. I think it's a huge one.
Yeah, you talked about that one
prioritizing your time and your day. The 4 Agreements is another really great book. I love this one by Bob Bodine. He's the #1 corporate or executive recruiter in America, and he wrote a book called The Power of Who. It's about networking. I think that's a really good one. Pound the Stone. Just grit. Sometimes you're just going to have to grit it out, and you're not going to see results, and it's going to suck, and your days are going to be tough and long. Pound the stone, because if it's just the compounding of you pounding that stone, it'll break and you'll have a breakthrough. And the last one, from a mental toughness standpoint, follow David Goggins on social media. He wrote a book, You Can't Hurt Me, and it's a good one. He's got a great story, but he's got some great tips in there on how to callus your mind, how to make yourself a little bit tougher. When you lift weights, you get those calluses on your hands. There's a way to also do that with your mind and improving your mental toughness. So those are my 5 favorite books for grads in 2023.
Do you think grads really want a book?
Well, hey, my advice to them is
Did you want a book when you were 18?
If someone came to me and said, if you read these 5 books, your life would be a lot more, it would be easier, you would be more successful, and you'd be able to accomplish anything and everything you set out to do if you just read these 5 books, and a very wise person would have told me that I respected, I would have listened to them, and absolutely. But that was before podcasts and videos and everything. Nowadays, you can get a book summary of these if you don't, or you can read these on Audible, right? You can read them while you're driving or read them while you work. But
I just think back, like when I was 17, graduated high school, and if somebody gave me a book, I probably wasn't going to read it because I just finished all the books.
Well, do you remember the other day on our podcast where I spoke to a local high school on personal development and finance, right? Financial education. And I felt like they really weren't into it. Well, you remember what I said?
What?
That I said, listen, I know it's Friday, you guys, and I know that you guys are 16 to 17, 18 years of age, and I know you don't want to hear this on how to create your own wealth and how to make money and how to better manage your finances. But how many of you are trust fund kids? Not one hand was raised. I said, so this is what you all just told me. In 5 years or less, you're going to want to know everything.
You're going to wish you had this.
You're going to wish you paid attention and took notes today. And you're going to want to reach out to this Dan Keller mortgage guy for more helpful information. Right now, it's not relevant to you. In 4 to 5 years, you are going to want every ounce of what I'm talking about today. So pay attention.
So maybe we're putting together the DK book bundle for all these kids that are sending us graduation announcements. I mean, all they want is cash, but let's send them. Maybe we could make something funny out of it and say this. This is actually the cash you don't see in this pile of books.
There's $100,000 here if you just read this book. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, because what is a great grad gift when you're 17, 18 years old? You want cash, right?
Absolutely. For the now, though, but if someone would have came to me and said, I'll give you $100 now, or I'll give you a book that'll make you $100,000 in 5 years, which one would you like?
No, I think it's awesome. I think it's a great idea. Cool. I think people take a lot away from that. I have a list of ideas because I know people are going to want that. Past your books. I love your books. Your books take #1, Dan. You win.
On top of books, what are your grad
Cash,
gifts?
gift cards, jewelry, travel, gift certificates, a personalized gift. I think it's very, very sweet. A donation, maybe in the graduate's name, like in the name of charity. I mean, those are just ideas. I don't know. I love your book idea. It could even be not a journal. What's the other one where every day you go through it? Why can't I think what those are called right now?
Like an accountability, like a planner?
No, not a planner.
Not a journal?
Nope. You know, there's just something that you think about every day.
Oh, got it.
What is that called?
I don't know. It's
my brain is
journal.
No, my brain is fried.
I think if you know what the grad's doing, if they're going to UCLA, for example, and they're and they're from Seattle, so they're moving away. Maybe just say, hey, instead of giving you $100 or a couple $100 now, I'm going to spread this out over the next year, and I'm going to send you something each month.
Love that.
A little gift basket or something like that, and then that's your commitment to.
Checking in with them, seeing how they're doing.
Coming along that journey.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, something like that. I used to love when I was in Iowa and in Oregon. my mom would send me dinners or cookies or something. I used to love getting
anything.
those.
When you're in college, you have nothing. I remember it being a luxury when I would go to the grocery store with my roommate, and we would be able to have enough money to buy Tillamook cheese and not Fred Meyer brand. Yeah. I'm not kidding.
Seriously.
That was like, we split the cost of the big loaf.
Yeah.
To put it on our eggs or whatever meal we were making. I mean, you're just poor.
You're poor. And you'd miss the home cook. Like my mom on our road trips when I was playing college baseball, they would come down and watch us play in Idaho or Oregon or California. And she would bring me a frozen dish of some of my favorite
Your roommates
dinners.
were like, yes, I'm sure.
And I would put it in my bat bag. And by the time we would get home that night or that next day, it would be ready to throw in the oven.
That's
and
so
oh
funny.
my goodness, we feasted.
I
we
bet.
loved that stuff. So yeah, those are some good gifts. Good tips.
Yeah. Party wise, I don't know. I'm not there yet. I'm sinking in some good ideas for next year. I mean, right now at the bake shop, of course, we're getting all the inquiries for the graduation desserts and things. And I told the girls, we've just finished up all kinds of busyness, the cookie party, the Cinco de Mayo, the Mother's Day. So we're kind of going basic this year, but I said, buckle up because next year Allie's graduating. So
go crazy.
I'll be ready for something crazy next year. When she graduated kindergarten, I did a little graduation party because I love, back then, guys, I used to have a party for everything. But we had remember the little pink party she had? Oh, yeah. And I remember I made a little wooden doll. I don't know. I probably got it on Etsy, like a little clothespin doll. I can't even remember what they were called, but they were kind of popular at the time. And they customized it to Allie. So there was a little white robe and a little pink tassel on her.
I remember that.
And I have to find it in my storage unit somewhere because I want to be able to put it on her graduation cake or somewhere in the party next year. I just like, don't forget about that. And then one thing, I think if you have little kids right now, because maybe you don't have a high school graduate or a college graduate, but you have kids that are graduating kindergarten or just finishing kindergarten. I don't even know if this is popular anymore, but it was. I started this when our kids were little. I went and bought that Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You Can Go.
Yeah.
And I took it to Allie's kindergarten teacher, and started it when Hudson was in kindergarten. And every year I brought that book to their teachers, and I had them sign a little note in there. Cute. And so that way when they graduate, like Allie will get that book next year, and it will have all the years of her teacher in there. So I got to dig that out because the year's almost over.
So young moms and dads
start a little tradition like that. Maybe it's
cool
not,
tradition.
The Dr. Seuss book. It could be anything. But I think that's going to be a fun little
because they can reflect back and remember their 5th grade teacher, or their 8th grade teacher. Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know you did that.
And if you didn't do that, maybe you just try to reach out to a couple of teachers and have that for your kids at their graduation party. Like, I think if you had a special relationship with a teacher, they're going to remember you.
Yeah.
And they would probably be pleased. They'd probably be pleased at the end of a school year to write another letter to your kids. But they would.
Think really about this from a kid's standpoint and a self-worth and a self-confidence standpoint. A teacher, maybe someone that they looked up to, saying those words of affirmation, those really kind, thoughtful, meaningful words to that person. I don't think you can say enough nice things to kids nowadays. I think they already are with the stuff they see on social media, discouraged enough, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right, so the party. Let's talk about the party real quick.
Okay,
the
we're
grad
going to go
party.
with the party?
Yeah.
I wasn't quite prepared.
Well, I love what
I can do any party. Let's lay it on me. Let's go.
I think it's
important. You want Chipotle.
Well, so the environment, so playlist. You're a big playlist person. Gotta have some good music.
I mean, before any of this, you have to make the graduation announcement.
Okay.
So senior pictures, announcement, grad party. Where is it going to be at? Where are you going to host? How many people are going to be there? Okay. I mean, it could be a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah.
But you're starting with the podcast? I mean, the playlist.
Let's put a bow on this podcast, the party.
Okay, the party. So all those things, you got to decide all that stuff. I mean, we did a full party podcast. So if you really want to dig through how to throw a great party, go there. I think with graduation, and I'm only guessing because I haven't been to a lot of grad parties for a while, but I remember always having to figure it out with your friends because your friends are graduating too. Yeah. So how do you have a party and your friend on the same day or the same weekend? So choosing your date's going to be important. Also, Father's Day's in there. So you've got to flirt around Father's Day and make sure Dad feels special too.
And sports and all that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So just finding the date is going to be a lot more difficult than other parties.
Okay.
And then I think graduation parties are normally like an open house. Gosh, mine was just like easy open house.
Yep.
Barbecue.
Yep.
Easy food. You could totally have a food truck come. You could have Chipotle come.
So you got dates, invitations, you got your location.
Yep.
Okay. You got your playlist. You have some good, fun, relevant music going. And
good
now you
drinks.
got food and drinks. So, I mean, my default to catering anything, anywhere
is
is
always
Chipotle.
Mexican food.
Oh, yeah. Easy. And
Well, even if
they're
it's
the
not
best.
Chipotle, I remember you threw a party for me once and you just found the local Mexican restaurant and ordered all that food.
Taco bar. Yep.
Yep.
We just did a
Everybody
big
loves
taco
that.
bar. Yep. Easy. You could barbecue. Hey, burgers and hamburgers and hot dogs.
Yep.
Are you kidding me? Okay, cool. I love what you have here. You're talking about like some things that are memorable at the party. So notes from teachers. How cool is that? Kind of like in that book.
Yep.
So, and then what else?
Photos of your kids. Show them their little journey. I mean, again, when I go to my storage unit, I'm digging out Allie's little uniform from North Shore Christian Academy. I have her tiny sweater from kindergarten. I think that's cute. And I think it'll mean a lot to your kids when you show them that you saved all that stuff. You know, maybe some of their little artwork when they were kids. I think that'd be cute. And it's fun for the guests to come and see that too.
Yeah.
Because your guests are probably going to go to a lot of different graduation parties. So make it personal to your kids.
Yeah.
I have a lot to do. I feel like I got to get started.
Okay, so the dessert queen.
Okay.
What is your best advice for, we've talked about the party, the food, desserts.
Oh, desserts.
How do you kind of on a budget? What's your best advice for desserts at a grad party?
I mean, the best advice is to go to Jenny Cookie's Bake Shop or bake your own treats out of, the 2 cookbooks, right? That's going to be my standard advice. But let's be honest. You might not live around here, or maybe that's not your budget. Maybe pick one special thing that your graduate really loves. I don't think my kids would actually pick Jenny Cookie's Bake Shop.
I don't think they would.
So I'll probably think, ask Allie, what does she want? Her friends will like that though. But one special thing that your grad is going to love.
Okay.
And then supplement from there. You don't have to buy everything store-bought, or on the flip side, you don't have to make every single thing.
Yeah.
Mix and match. Have a variety depending on your guest count. And if you're going to have a different variety of treats, I always say like 2.5 treats per guest.
Yeah.
So if you have cookies, cupcakes, cake pops, Rice Krispie treats, brownies, they're going to probably grab about 2.5 treats. Some people might grab 0. You're going to have the lady that fills her purse. That's
grandma.
just how it is. But you could also get creative with the dessert. Maybe you have an ice cream sundae bar. Maybe you have a float bar. Maybe you have a banana split bar. Maybe you have, it just depends on, I guess, where you live, what fruits are in season. You could do a shortcake bar, and have different. Yeah. So, doesn't have to be your typical cookies and cupcakes or cake. You could make it really fun.
Yeah. I love that advice, and I love the ratio. I have not heard that before. So what'd you say? Like,
I always say 2.5 because I always want to have more. I'd rather have more than not enough. That's just my personality, because people want to bring some home. So about 2.5 desserts.
About 50 desserts, 50 pieces or servings.
Yeah, and small, not gigantic.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Even for a wedding? Does that work for weddings? All events?
It's literally just my personal rule, but it doesn't have to be yours.
I love it.
You're going to know your group more than I do, but I typically have pretty good dessert. So that's where I think people want the 2.5.
So we've had a great party, great location, great food, good music. You made it memorable. Here's my non-party planner tip that I'll anchor this down with. I think you teach your grad a valuable lesson and do a handwritten note to everyone that came.
Yes. Oh, for sure. They got to do a handwritten note.
Handwritten note to all the guests that came and took time out of their day. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah.
And that's a good habit to develop in life. And you've done a great job with Allie and Hudson on this for teaching them.
Hey, you know what's a great gift, guys? Then it makes me think of that. Get them some personalized stationery.
There you go.
Fancy with their little name on it.
So how would they go about doing that? You have some places that you
I always work with Minted. I've always bought stationery from them, but there's so many suppliers out there that do that. I think that's really fun. Now my brain's going. I didn't know I was going to be put on the spot here for a grad party, but now my ideas are flowing. I was thinking it would be really sweet if people didn't write. If they didn't already write something inspiring to the grad, it could almost be like a guest book, they could write something that, a wish for the graduate or a piece of advice or something. Like, think about what the question is for every person that's coming to the party. And that's something you can bundle up and give to the graduate later. Kind of like you would do at a baby shower, advice for the new mom, but maybe advice for the new grad. And that's something they would actually keep forever. from their graduation. So I love that little sentiment, and I love things that you can, that remind you of things, and then I love a favor.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have a great, really fun party favor for Allie next year.
I had a feeling that you would really like this podcast because it has a lot to do with parties and just little things.
I can't even believe we're getting close to that.
I know. Crazy.
I know.
We're getting old, babe. Well, that was a great job. Good job today.
Good job, Dan.
All right.
All right, you guys. Well, hey, next week we'll be back for another episode of the Baker and the Banker podcast. Congrats to you, grads. And the parents that got your kids to the finish line. We are with you. We're watching you. We're giving you a high five because we know it's not an easy road. It's hard.
Oh, yeah.
So please take a minute to celebrate you, that you got through it and you did a great job. So I hope you have a great week, and we will see you guys next week. Goodbye.